Salutations everyone, and thank you for being here, wherever you are, in this shared moment of attention. Tonight we're going to explore something that lives at the meeting point of metaphysics and daily life. Something that touches both the cosmic and the deeply personal. The theme is eternal recurrence, the manifestation of the consequence of causation, and symbolism as the living language that unites them. Now those are large words, but what we are really talking about is how life repeats, how our inner states create our outer worlds, and how conscious understanding can transform the very law of recurrence into a path of awakening. Part 1. Eternal recurrence, the pattern beneath time. The idea of eternal recurrence is ancient. It appears in many traditions, from the Stoics to the Vedas, to Nietzsche, and of course within the teaching of the Fourth Way. But in the Fourth Way work, eternal recurrence is not just a cosmic speculation, it's a practical observation of repetition. Everything repeats, until something conscious enters the sequence. Our thoughts repeat, our emotions repeat, our relationships, our conflicts, our excuses, even our enthusiasms, all follow patterns. Each time we say, "Why does this keep happening to me?" we are glimpsing the law of recurrence in action. And at the core of its causation, each cause produces a consequence, and that consequence becomes the next cause. Left unexamined, the chain continues indefinitely, the same energy looping through different forms. Gurdjieff called this mechanical life. Life lived under the law of accident, where we imagine we are choosing, but in fact we are simply repeating. So, eternal recurrence isn't fate imposed from above. It's the momentum of causes we ourselves set in motion, moment by moment. Part 2. The chain of causation. Every effect has its root, and every root produces a branch. What we call fate is really the inertia of accumulated consequences. In the work, we observe that man is mostly asleep, and in sleep, our actions are not fresh. They are reactions, echoes of old patterns. So when a familiar event triggers the same emotional storm, what we are seeing is the manifestation of the consequences of causation. It's not random. It's lawful. We're living inside the ripple of something we ourselves once set in motion, often long ago, and usually unconsciously. To see this law at work is the beginning of freedom, because once you can see the mechanism, you can begin to introduce something new into it. Part 3. Consciousness. The element that transforms. If recurrence is the circle, then consciousness is the radius, the line that reaches towards the center. Consciousness doesn't cause causation, it transmutes it. The moment I truly see a pattern, not intellectually, but with the quiet light of awareness, a new element enters the field. That seeing is not part of the old chain. It's a different vibration. In the Fourth Way, it is called the first conscious impulse or shock, the deliberate introduction of attention into a mechanical process. Think of your own life. Perhaps you've seen how the same situation keeps reappearing, the same argument, the same resistance, the same self-doubt. If we react mechanically, the pattern continues. But if we see it as it happening, if we simply witness the recurrence without judgment, the pattern begins to dissolve its power. That moment of seeing is the seed of transformation. It's not willpower. It's not suppression. It's the quiet act of being present in the midst of causation. Part 4. Symbolism, the language of the invisible. Now, let's bring in symbolism. In esoteric work, symbols are not decorations. They are the mathematics of the invisible. They show how energy moves, how causation manifests through form, vibration, and law. The Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, that's recurrence. Life devouring itself in a circle of causation. But add consciousness, and that circle becomes a spiral. Repetition then becomes evolution. The cross, the meeting of vertical and horizontal, is the intersection of time and eternity, of recurrence and freedom. And in the fourth way, we have symbolic systems that express these laws. The ray of creation, the structure of descending densities and increasing laws, the enneagram, the diagram of transformation, shock and process, the octave, the law of vibration, and the intervals where energy needs conscious intervention. These are not abstract. They are mirrors of your own inner process. To study a symbol is to study yourself, because symbols describe the movement of the same energies that move within you. When you begin to perceive life symbolically, you start to see that causation itself speaks in symbols. Events are symbols, repetition are symbols, your own pattern are symbols, messages from law. Part 5. Practical application. Working with recurrence. So, how do we work with all this in our daily life? The goal is not to escape recurrence, but to wake up inside it. Here are some practical approaches from the work. 1. Self-observation. Begin to notice your repetitions, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Where do you say the same words, feel the same feelings, react in the same tone of voice? That's your personal recurrence pattern. 2. Non-identification. When you see it, don't say this is me. Say, this is something happening to me or in me. That little shift of perspective changes everything. It separates the witness from the mechanism. 3. Conscious labor and intentional suffering. When you resist your habitual reaction, it hurts a little. That friction, that effort to stay awake, creates energy. It's called conscious labor and intentional suffering. And it's one of the most precious substances in the universe. 4. Symbolic reflection. When an image, dream, or event feels charged, reflect on it. Ask, what law is being revealed here? Symbols are teachers. They show us where we are in the cycle. 5. Intentional action. When new awareness arises, act from it, even in a small way. One deliberate act can shift the entire line of causation. A single conscious gesture can open up a new octave. These are not theories, they are experiments. Try them in your own life, and you'll begin to see that laws which once bound you now begin to serve you. Part 6. The spiral of transformation. As consciousness enters recurrence, the circle opens into a spiral. The same events may appear, the same faces, the same challenges, but something in you is different. That difference is evolution. It's not about escaping the wheel. It's about rising through it. Every repetition becomes a new turn of the spiral. A chance to refine perception, to deepen attention, to act with a little more consciousness. This is real transformation. Part 7. Consequences as teachers. We usually think of consequences as punishment or reward, but in the work, consequences are messages from law. They reveal where we are asleep and where we are awake. So when the consequence appears, pleasant or painful, we can ask, what cause is it showing me? That question opens humility, and humility opens understanding. In that moment, even difficulty becomes sacred, because it's delivering you the very knowledge you need to awaken. Part 8. The symbolic life. When this perception grows, life itself becomes symbolic. Events are no longer random. They form a text. Life becomes a scripture of becoming. The people you meet, the obstacles you face, the repetitions you endure, each is the hieroglyph of your inner state. To live symbolically is to live in dialogue with the universe, to see that every moment, every recurrence is speaking to you. That changes everything. You no longer fight events, you use them. Every difficulty becomes raw material for transformation. Part 9. Manifestation and the field of intention. Let's bring this into the realm of manifestation, because the natural extension of the same principle. Manifestation is not wishful thinking. It is the lawful result of inner alignment. When thought, emotion, and action moves together in one direction, a unified cause is set in motion, and its consequence is manifestation. But when we are fragmented, when one part wants and another part resists, our causation cancels itself. This is why Gurdjieff emphasized the harmonization of centers, intellectual, emotional, and physical. When they are attuned, energy moves without obstruction. Then intention becomes a cause whose consequence must appear. So to manifest differently, we must be differently. Change the quality of your being, and the field of causation rearranges around you. That's real magic, not superstition, but lawful resonance. Part 10. The law of octaves. Every process follows the law of octaves. Energy rises, then weakens. Without a shock or impulse, it falls, fails, and repeats. That's why so many efforts, projects, practices, relationships lose force halfway through. To change the outcome, a conscious impulse or shock must be introduced, a deliberate act of awareness at the point where energy would normally decline. It might be at a moment of remembering, a renewed effort, or simply holding attention through resistance. That act renews the vibration, completes the octave, and lifts the process to a new level. Understanding this law helps us to work intelligently with recurrence, to anticipate the fall, and to insert consciousness where the old cause would have collapsed. Part 11. The alchemy of consequence. In the end, this work is alchemy. The base metal is recurrence, the dull repetition of mechanical life. The fire is attention, conscious, sustained, and sincere. And the gold is freedom. Freedom not from causation, but within it. Freedom to choose how we respond to the law. Symbols describe this alchemy in images. The serpent, the crucible, the phoenix, the spiral. All of them point to the same process, transformation through awareness. So let us return to our beginning. Eternal recurrence is not something happening to us. It is the mirror of our own unconscious creation. Causation is not a prison. It is the architecture of transformation. And symbolism is the language through which the universe teaches us its laws. When we bring consciousness into recurrence, when we study the symbols that appear in our lives, and when we accept the consequences of our causes with humility and awareness, we begin to participate in life as co-creators, not as victims. Then we are no longer bound by repetition. We are lifted by it, transformed by it, spiraling upwards through the same moments, but each time with a little bit more light. And that is in the work. Thank you. So mote it be.